So this is about the planning experiment. Dilute hydrochloric acid react with calcium carbonate to make a carbon dioxide gas. The operator is shown. The diagram is diagram can be used to follow the progress of a reaction. The carbon dioxide gas leave the flask, and the amount of the balance reading will decrease here, because as a gas escape, the amount of the content in the flask mass decreases. We have to plan an investigation using the apparatus shown in the diagram to find how the temperature of a dilute hydrochloric acid affects the rate of a reaction. Your plan should include how your result will show how the temperature of a dilute hydrochloric acid affects the rate of reaction. You are provided with a dilute hydrochloric acid, you have calcium carbonate. So how we can plan this experiment? What we should do? This is a 6-mark question, usually a last question from paper 6, which is about the planning experiment. So how it can be done? We want to work out how a temperature can affect the rate or the speed of a reaction. So we'll add
So
X.
Mr. bring
Hmm.
like
You should.
excess of 10 grams of calcium carbonate to 10 cubic centimeter of dilute hydrochloric acid,
Hmm.
and then repeat the experiment with different temperatures of the acid.
Hmm. And then how you show your results?
uh, by seeing the time that the calcium carbonate react completely.
Or you can also measure because here you're measuring how as you can see the apparatus they mentioned, you can use this apparatus as a reference. So what actually will happen here, the mass will decrease. So if the mass will decrease, what we can do, we can plot a graph between the mass and the time. Mass of a content in the flask and the time. And what will be the pattern here? In the beginning, we have maximum mass, but then the mass will start to decrease. The initial slope represent the rate of this reaction. And then eventually, like as all the reaction happen or occur, the mass will be constant. Then repeat with different temperature. If we do at a high temperature, the change in a mass will be like much quicker, keeping the mass of the calcium carbonate and the concentration of hydrochloric acid and the volume of the hydrochloric acid same, because we want to find how the temperature. Your plan should include how your result will show temperature of a hydrochloric acid affects the rate of reaction. So the points we will mention here, yeah, that's right, we'll control. But you have to mention in terms of experiment, it's, yeah, repeating experiment is also a good technique. So we will take example 10 cm cube of HCl, eh, by measuring cylinder. Always try to mention the, whenever you're writing the experiment or writing the answer, always try to mention the name of apparatus. Like what we did here, we take 10 cm cube of hydrochloric acid by help of the measuring cylinder. and transfer to conical flask. That is one thing. Using a pipette, that's 10 cm cube. I cannot use pipette. I can mention a burette is more accurate. I can mention that as well for accuracy, but here I cannot mention a pipette. Why pipette I cannot mention? Because I mentioned a 10 cm cube. So 10 cm cube cannot be measured by a pipette. That's why. So we took 10 cm cube of a hydrochloric acid. We transferred that into a conical flask. That's first thing. Then we measure the mass of what we mix here. It was calcium carbonate. Yeah. So measure the mass of a calcium carbonate or take known mass of a calcium carbonate. Add to conical flask, and how we can transfer the solid by the help of spatula. So using a spatula, we can transfer a solid into, then we will measure the mass of content in the flask and start the timer, record temperature. Yes, you can also write add known mass of a calcium carbonate. That is also correct. Then record the change mass after 30 seconds for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you can also mention. Then repeat the experiment with same mass and of calcium carbonate. And volume of hydrochloric acid, volume and concentration of hydrochloric acid. At different temperatures. And how I can make a temperature different here? Like I can warm, yeah, place in thermostatically controlled water bath. Yeah, that is also fine. So repeat the experiment with same mass of a calcium carbonate and volume at different temperatures. Like first we took like hydrochloric acid at 20, then we warmed the hydrochloric acid at 30 and did the experiment, then 40 and did the experiment. Then we can plot the results on graph between mass and time, and the steeper graph shows the fastest way. These are the points you should mention. Is it clear this is planning? Anyone having a doubt or a question in this?
No, sir, clear.
Yes, you can mention here. You can mention a result. You're like as they mentioned here. No, but the result instead of graph, you can say higher temperature. The no, but you have to mention how you reach the conclusion. How you reach this conclusion that higher temperature. So you will mention the one which shows a greater change in mass. It's a faster reaction, and at higher temperature it will be happening. What what will be the shape of the graph for the change in the mass and the time. So if you have mass on y-axis and we have time on x-axis, we start with the same value. So this is the one graph. This is another. So this one is at high temperature because it quickly changed its mass. The red one is at low temperature, means it took time. So this one is at steeper, this one is less steeper. So slope or the angle also shows that which reaction is faster. So slope refers to the speed of the reaction.